This story is titled, Sister Banned Me from Her Wedding Because I'd Bring Bad Luck, but her new husband found out and called off the wedding. Now they're separated and she's blaming me. Hey everyone, before we jump into today's video, please like this video and subscribe Positive Voices. Let's begin. My name is Olivia, 24F, and I have somehow become responsible for deciding how my sister, Rebecca, 29F, marriage will be. Before I get into the details, let me just say right off the bat I'm the product of my dad's affair. Yeah, it's awkward, and I've been reminded of that constantly by my stepmom, Ashley, 53F. She said things like I'm a constant reminder of my dad's mistakes more times than I can count. Fun, right? So, growing up was rough. Ashley always made sure I knew I was different. I remember one summer when I was like 8 or 9, Rebecca and I wanted to go to the pool with some friends. I asked Ashley if I could tag along, and she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Why don't you just stay home and give everyone a break?" Like, what did I even do? I was just a kid. Rebecca smirked. They left without me, and I cried all day. That was pretty much my entire childhood. Ashley had a way of making me feel like I didn't belong. On holidays, she'd get Rebecca these awesome, thoughtful gifts like designer clothes or gadgets, and I'd get, I don't know, a dollar store candle or something. One Christmas, Rebecca got a brand new laptop because she needed it for college, and I got a scarf. Yep. They didn't even get my initials right. Like, what the actual hell? Rebecca wasn't any better. She was older than me, so I always kind of looked up to her. But she used that against me. She'd constantly make fun of how I dressed, or how I talked, or literally anything she could think of. There was this one time in middle school I had these purple sneakers that I loved. I thought they were the coolest thing ever. Rebecca saw them and said, "You know those make you look like a clown, right?" I tried to laugh it off, but after that, I couldn't even look at them without feeling embarrassed. Oh, and Rebecca liked to spread rumors about me at school, too. She told her friends I was adopted, which, technically, I guess you could say I was, and that rumor spread like wildfire. People started asking me if it was true, and I was just mortified. When I confronted her, she just shrugged and said, "Well, you kinda are, right?" Like, seriously? I tried to bond with her, too. I figured if I could be more like her, maybe she'd accept me. I'd ask if she wanted to watch movies together or help me with homework, but she always had some excuse. "I'm busy," or "Why don't you ask your real mom for help?" It got to the point where I just stopped trying. Eventually, I went off to college and distanced myself from all of them. It was a huge relief to be away, but the emotional damage was already done. Even now, when I go back for holidays, the tension is so thick. Ashley makes passive-aggressive comments about how I never visit, and Rebecca loves to throw in digs like, "Some people just can't handle family." The worst part of it all was when my dad had a health scare a couple of years ago. He was rushed to the hospital, and we were all pretty shaken up. I showed up to be with him, and Ashley and Rebecca acted like I didn't exist. Ashley muttered something about how I shouldn't even be there, and Rebecca flat out told me to leave, saying, "Why don't you just go back? We've got this." Even in that serious moment, they couldn't let go of their pettiness. And what did my dad do? Nothing. He never stood up for me. Every time I'd tell him how I felt, he'd just say something like, "I know it's hard, but try to get along." Like, "Thanks for the support, Dad." It was like he didn't want to deal with it, and I was just supposed to suck it up. So yeah, like I said, I had moved out and was doing my own thing, living my life away from the chaos at home. I'd still go back for the holidays, but other than that, I barely talked to my family. It was just easier that way. But last year, Rebecca brought her fiancé, Roger, 29M, to one of these holiday get-togethers. I had no idea what to expect, honestly. I figured he'd be just like the rest of them, polite, but distant, or maybe even awkward around me because, you know, family drama. But to my surprise, Roger and I actually hit it off. He was normal, like, he didn't treat me like I was this weird outsider or, worse, Dad's big mistake. We talked about random stuff, movies, music, travel, which, given the whole Europe thing, was a sore topic, but I played it cool. It was just easy. It felt like for once, someone in my family didn't see me as some kind of walking reminder of their messed up history. The visit itself was the same as always. Ashley was cold, giving me her classic, "Oh, so you finally decided to show up," like I owed her something. Rebecca was just Rebecca, kind of ignoring me but not being outright rude, probably because Roger was there. She might have been on her best behavior for him. Who knows? Then, out of nowhere, Rebecca pulled me aside and asked if I'd be one of her bridesmaids. And I was like, wait, what? I mean, we barely talk, and now she wants me in her wedding? My first instinct was to say no. The thought of standing up there with her, pretending like we were one big happy family, made me want to run. But I didn't want to stir up more drama, so I said yes. Maybe she was trying to make peace, or maybe it was just for show, but whatever, I went along with it. I thought maybe, just maybe, this would be the start of us getting closer. But nope. It was like I agreed to be a bridesmaid in name only. She barely involved me in anything. There was this group chat with all the other bridesmaids, and I was in it, but I might as well not have been. They'd be chatting about dress fittings and bachelorette party plans, and I was just there. One time I asked Rebecca if I should come along for dress shopping, and she was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I've got it handled." Okay, cool. Thanks for the invite, sis. But soon I realized that Rebecca asking me to be a bridesmaid wasn't really about making amends or anything. I realized pretty quickly it was just her way of making me feel like crap all over again. I thought maybe it'd bring us closer, but instead, I got stuck doing all the boring tasks. I helped with the gift, sent out the invites, and basically did all this stuff to help her out. And still, I didn't get invited to her bachelorette party. Like, seriously? But here's the kicker. After everything I did for her, Rebecca straight up told me I couldn't come to the wedding. Her reason? She actually said having someone like me, a product of an affair, would be bad luck for her marriage. Like, what the actual hell? I was so mad. I went off on her, yelling and even dropping a few curse words. I couldn't hold back. She deserved it, honestly. I mean, how could she say that to me? I've heard a lot of hurtful things from my family over the years, but that one stung on a whole other level. I just couldn't believe my own sister was kicking me out of her wedding because of something I had literally no control over. She acted like I was some bad omen or something, just because of how I was born. And the worst part? She didn't even seem fazed by my reaction. She just stood there, all calm and collected, like I was the one being dramatic. No apology, no nothing. So yeah, after that I was done. I cut her off completely. It wasn't even about the wedding at that point. It was the fact that she saw me as some kind of stain on her perfect life and didn't give a damn about my feelings. I was tired of trying to fit into a family that didn't want me. And to be honest, I think cutting her off was the best decision I ever made. Dad didn't really get involved much. I think he felt guilty, but at the same time, he's always been the kind of guy to avoid conflict, especially with Ashley around. She probably loved the fact that I wasn't going to the wedding. It's like the less I was around, the better for her. Dad didn't stand up for me, but honestly, I didn't expect him to. He's never really done that, so why would he start now? However, the drama was far from over. So, it's her wedding day, and I'm just at home, minding my own business, literally chilling on the couch when out of nowhere, I get this call from Rebecca. She's full on screaming at me, telling me I've ruined her life. Like what? I hadn't even talked to her that day, let alone done anything to ruin her wedding. I barely managed to ask what was going on before she launched into a string of swear words, said something about how I always have to make everything about myself, and then slammed the phone down on me. I was just sitting there like, what? Before I could even process what the hell just happened, my phone buzzes again this time. It's a text from my cousin. He sent me a video and was like, "You need to watch this right now." So, naturally, I clicked on it, and oh boy, it was a video from the wedding reception. It was Roger's speech, and the whole thing was about me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Apparently, during his big wedding toast, Roger decided to talk about how my family had treated me over the years. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He was basically calling out everyone for how they'd made me the scapegoat, how they'd never given me a fair chance, and how I didn't deserve to be treated like an outsider just because of things that were out of my control. I sat there, stunned, watching Roger drop bomb after bomb in front of the entire wedding. He went on about how I was always made to feel less than, how people in my family had constantly looked down on me, and how wrong it was. It wasn't some small side note, either. It was the main focus of his whole speech. He even ended it by saying, "Olivia, if you're watching this, I want you to know that not everyone in this family thinks you're a mistake. You deserve better, and I'm sorry you had to go through all this." I didn't know how to feel. I was blown away by how bold Roger was to say all that at their wedding. I mean, I appreciated what he said. He was sticking up for me in front of everyone, but I could also see why Rebecca had freaked out. Of course, she'd blame me, even though I literally had nothing to do with it. She was probably embarrassed that her brand new husband just aired all the dirty laundry in front of their guests, and because it was about me, she turned her anger toward me, as usual. The rest of the day, I kept getting texts and calls from family members. Half of them were angry, like, how could you let Roger ruin Rebecca's big day? As if I had any control over what came out of his mouth. The other half were actually supportive, saying stuff like, I didn't know things were that bad for you, or I'm sorry I never stood up for you. It was such a mixed bag of emotions. I didn't even know how to respond to most of them, so I just ignored my phone for the rest of the day. The funny thing is, Roger and I hadn't even talked about my family in that much detail. Sure, we'd had a few conversations, and he knew things were rough between me, Rebecca, and Ashley, but I never expected him to go out there and give a whole speech about it. Part of me felt guilty, like I had unintentionally ruined Rebecca's wedding. But at the same time, I couldn't help but feel relieved that someone had finally said it out loud, and in front of all the people who had been treating me like crap for years. It was the validation I never expected but always kind of wanted. So, like I said, after all that craziness, I thought it was over. But nope. A few minutes later, my dad calls me, which is already weird because he hardly ever calls unless he absolutely has to. He starts the conversation in this awkward way, like he's trying to be casual, but I could tell something was up. After a few how I use and hope you're doing well, he finally gets to the point and asks if I'd be willing to talk to Roger and tell him he's wrong about everything, that things aren't as bad as he made them seem. I was shocked. Like, seriously, my own dad was asking me to lie, to downplay everything that had happened, and pretend like the years of being treated like garbage didn't exist. It felt like a slap in the face. I mean, it's not like Roger was spouting lies at the wedding. He literally told the truth about how I'd been treated, and instead of owning up to it, my dad was trying to cover it up. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So I straight up told him, no, I'm not doing that. I wasn't going to throw Roger under the bus for standing up for me, and I sure as hell wasn't going to act like my family hadn't treated me like crap for years. My dad's response? He said that Rebecca's marriage and the family's reputation were on the line, as if that was supposed to make me change my mind. I honestly couldn't believe that even after everything, his main concern was about what other people thought and not about how I'd been treated. I stood my ground and told him again, I'm not going to say anything to Roger. What he said was the truth, and I'm not going to lie to make anyone feel better. Dad didn't like that, of course, and he started going on about how this whole thing was blown out of proportion and that if I just talked to Roger, everything would blow over. I could tell he was getting frustrated with me, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to let them manipulate me into fixing a mess that they created. But here's the thing, since that phone call, they haven't stopped. I keep getting texts and calls from my dad, Rebecca, and even some other family members, all of them pressuring me to smooth things over with Roger. It's like they think if I say something, everything will magically go back to normal, and they can pretend like nothing ever happened. Rebecca, in particular, has been relentless, sending me these long, dramatic messages about how I'm ruining her life and how her marriage is going to fail if I don't step in. As if that's somehow my fault now? I'm stuck in this weird spot because, on the one hand, I don't want to see Roger and Rebecca's marriage fall apart because of this. But on the other hand, I'm not about to lie or let them sweep everything under the rug just for the sake of keeping up appearances. I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm not going to fix this mess for them. If Rebecca's marriage is on the rocks because of what Roger said, that's something they need to figure out between the two of them. It's not my responsibility to save them from the truth. At this point, I don't even know what to do. I've told them no multiple times, but they just won't let it go. I'm seriously considering blocking their numbers for a while just to get some peace, but I feel like that might make things even worse. I don't know. It's exhausting. I just want to move on with my life and not be dragged into their drama anymore, but they're making it really hard. If anyone has any advice on how to deal with this kind of situation, I'm all ears. Thank you in advance. Update 1. Hi everyone. So, I just wanted to clear a few things up because I've been getting a lot of questions and comments that need some explaining. First of all, a lot of you asked why I was even living with my stepmom and dad in the first place. And I honestly can't believe I have to clarify this, but the reason is because my mom died when I was only 4 years old. She was in a car accident and passed away on the way to the hospital. After that, I didn't have much choice but to move in with my dad and his wife, Ashley. It's not like I had anywhere else to go. I mean, I was just a kid, you know? And yes, my dad sucks. I don't think I've sugarcoated that, but let's just lay it all out there. This whole mess started because my dad couldn't keep it in his pants. My mom and he were office colleagues, and they had an affair behind Ashley's back for about a year before everything came crashing down. Ashley only found out the truth when one of her friends spotted my dad at a women's clinic with my mom. And well, you can imagine how that went down. Despite all of that, Ashley decided to forgive him and stay with him. I've tried to put myself in her shoes, and I get it must have been incredibly painful for her. I can only imagine how hard it must have been to have me around, being a constant reminder of my dad's betrayal. But at the same time, I was just a little kid. I didn't deserve the way she treated me. None of this was my fault. Growing up in that house, I could tell from a young age that Ashley never saw me as part of the family. She tolerated me at best. She'd make these offhand comments like, "Your mother might have been prettier, but at least I'm the one who stuck around." Or, "I wonder how different her life would be if she hadn't died." And while I didn't understand all of it at first, by the time I was a teenager, it was pretty clear she resented me for even existing. Every argument, every family event, I could feel her side-eyeing me, like I was a mistake that had wandered into her perfect little family. The second thing I want to address is Roger. A lot of you were curious about why he made that speech at the wedding. And honestly, it wasn't something he had planned from the start. The reason Roger gave that speech was because he found out after the wedding that Rebecca had told me not to come. He had no idea she'd uninvited me. I guess someone spilled the beans during the reception, and when he found out, he was pissed. He's always been a pretty chill guy, but I think that was the last straw for him. So, in the heat of the moment, he decided to call out my family during his wedding speech. I don't think he meant to cause a scene or anything, he just couldn't stand the idea that I was being treated so badly, especially when I'd done nothing to deserve it. Some of you also asked why I even agreed to be a bridesmaid in the first place, knowing how things were between me and Rebecca. And honestly, I was just shocked she asked me. For a moment, I thought maybe this was her way of extending an olive branch, like maybe we could finally move past all the bad blood. Looking back, that was probably naive of me. But at the time, I just wanted to believe that things could get better. So when she asked, I said yes, even though I had a gut feeling that it might end badly. And of course, she ended up using me as her personal errand girl, then uninviting me when she didn't need me anymore. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. The thing that really hurt wasn't just the fact that she uninvited me. It was the reason she gave me. Rebecca straight up told me that having someone like me, the product of an affair, at her wedding would bring her bad luck. I don't think I've ever felt more like an outsider than I did in that moment. It wasn't just about the wedding, it was about the years of being treated like I didn't belong, and that comment was the final nail in the coffin. So when Roger found out what she'd done, I guess he felt like he needed to say something. I mean, I never asked him to defend me like that, but at the same time, it felt good to have someone finally acknowledge what I'd been going through. Of course, it caused a ton of drama, and now I'm being blamed for ruining Rebecca's wedding, even though I wasn't even there. Update 2. Hi everyone. I've got some updates for you all, and things have gotten even more complicated, because of course they have, right? So, yesterday, about 3 days after the wedding, I got a call from Roger. I was a little surprised because I hadn't expected to hear from him so soon, but I was also curious, so I picked up. He asked if I could meet up with him to talk, and I agreed. We decided to meet at this little cafe near my house, the kind of place where you can sit outside and sip your coffee while pretending your life isn't a total dumpster fire. When I got there, Roger looked, I don't know, kind of worn out. He seemed a little stressed, which, to be fair, I get. We'd both been through the emotional ringer. Anyway, we started with some small talk before he finally got to the point and apologized to me for everything that had happened, specifically for his speech at the wedding. I didn't even know what to say at first because, honestly, I didn't think he had anything to apologize for. If anything, I felt like he was the only person who had my back during all this chaos. But I guess he felt bad about how things blew up. I asked him why he didn't just talk to Rebecca directly instead of calling me out of the blue, and he said he did talk to her right after he found out she had uninvited me, but she basically dismissed his concerns. He said he had always known Rebecca could be a little mean, but he never thought she would treat her own family like this. That kind of hit me in the gut because, to be honest, I didn't think it was that big of a secret that Rebecca was a nightmare to me. I figured if he was marrying her, he had to have seen how she treated me, but I guess she kept that side of herself hidden from him, or at least downplayed it. So then, I asked him, what are you planning to do now? Like, what's his next move? Because I was genuinely curious how this was going to affect their marriage. And you know what he said? He doesn't know. He looked so confused and conflicted, like he hadn't really thought it through yet. He said part of him was struggling with the idea of being married to someone who could treat their own sister like this. But at the same time, he wasn't sure what to do because it was, marriage. And this just happened, so I'm guessing he's still processing everything. Then, he asked me if I was planning to forgive Rebecca. That question totally caught me off guard because, to be honest, I hadn't even thought about forgiving her yet. I've just been trying to process my own emotions. So I told him, Rebecca hasn't even called me, other than that one time when she cussed me out over the phone after the wedding. Roger looked genuinely shocked, like he couldn't believe she hadn't reached out to make things right. He then told me that he had specifically told Rebecca her marriage was contingent on her apologizing to me and making things right. Apparently, he had made it very clear that he couldn't move forward with her if she didn't at least try to fix this mess. So for him to find out she hadn't even tried to reach out to me was like a slap in the face. I could see he was really disappointed in her, and honestly, I didn't know what to say to that. Like, what was I supposed to do? At this point, it felt like Rebecca had chosen her pride over her relationship, not just with me, but with her husband too. We talked for a little while longer, but the whole vibe was just heavy, He eventually got up to leave, but before he did, he told me he was going to have another talk with Rebecca and figure out where things stood. Part of me felt bad for him because it was clear he didn't sign up for this kind of drama when he married her. But at the same time, I couldn't help but think, this is the reality of being with Rebecca. This is who she is. I'm just trying to keep my head above water at this point. Update 3. Well, here's the final update for you all. It's been about a month since my last post, and a lot has happened since then. I wasn't sure if I'd be back with more updates, but here we are. First off, I still haven't received any kind of apology from Rebecca. Shocker, right? On the upside, the constant badgering from my parents has finally stopped. I don't know if they just got tired of me refusing to play along or if they realized I wasn't going to change my stance, but either way, I'm grateful. It's been really nice to have that space to breathe without them trying to guilt-trip me into fixing things with Rebecca. I feel like I've finally got a little peace, at least from that side of things. But here's the big news. Rebecca and Roger are officially separated. I know, wild, right? I didn't expect it to happen so soon, but from what I've learned through Roger and a few of my cousins, it sounds like things have been rocky between them for a while, and this whole wedding drama was just the final nail in the coffin. I won't lie, part of me feels guilty, like I was somehow the catalyst for their split, but Roger's been really kind about it all. He's assured me that this wasn't entirely about the wedding or me. I'll be honest, I was relieved when he told me that. It made me feel a little less like I was the reason their marriage fell apart. Roger said it was more about who Rebecca was as a person than anything I did or didn't do, and that took a weight off my shoulders. I didn't want to be responsible for someone else's relationship issues, especially when I've been trying to distance myself from family drama for years. Apparently, Rebecca wasn't taking the separation well, but that's kind of to be expected, right? I mean, she's not exactly someone who handles things gracefully. From what I've heard, she's been blaming everyone but herself. Classic Rebecca. Some cousins have even told me she's been spinning this story that I somehow manipulated Roger or convinced him to leave her, which is insane. But it's not surprising, given how she's always tried to paint me as the villain in every situation. And as for Roger, He and I have stayed in touch. It's not like we're super close or anything, but we've checked in on each other a few times since the separation. He seems to be doing okay, all things considered. I think he's still processing everything, but he told me he's been talking to a therapist, which I think is a really good step for him. Honestly, I hope he finds his peace too, because he deserves better than what he went through with Rebecca. If anything new happens, I'll keep you guys updated, but for now, I think this might be the end of the road for this particular saga. Thanks for sticking with me through all of this.